Hey Reddit, I've never written anything like this before, but I feel like the only way to make sense of everything is to walk through the whole thing, start to finish. And the only honest way to do that is to begin where it all started, back when Rachel and I first met, before life got complicated, before we were anything but two strangers at the same party. It was a friend of a friend kind of thing, one of those house parties where nobody really knows the host, but everyone pretends they belong. I was 25, working my first real job in IT, fresh out of school and still figuring out how to dress like an adult. Rachel was 22, finishing up her degree in graphic design. I remember she had this oversized denim jacket covered in enamel pins. One of them was a cassette tape with the words Side B written across it. No idea what it meant, but I liked it. She had that kind of vibe, creative, a little offbeat, and somehow instantly interesting. We ended up in the kitchen, standing next to each other at the sink, both pretending to be waiting for something. She asked me if I knew how to open a bottle of wine without a corkscrew. I said no, but I was willing to try. I stabbed it with a house key. It didn't work. But we laughed, and that was the start. We started dating not long after that. It was slow, easy Sunday morning coffee runs, walks through used bookstores, little notes she'd leave in my jacket pockets. I used to love the way she'd narrate our errands like she was documenting a travel documentary, and now we find the rare and elusive soy milk on its native shelf. I'm telling you, she made even grocery shopping feel like something special. We moved in together after a year and got married 2 years after that. Nothing flashy, a small wedding at a local garden with just family and close friends. Rachel wore a pale blue dress she designed herself. I still remember standing there watching her walk toward me and thinking, this is the beginning of something good. Really good. Now we've been married for nearly 10 years. We live in a cozy 2-story place in the suburbs, the kind with squeaky floorboards and a backyard that gets too much sun. I work in software consulting and mostly from home these days. Rachel runs her own small design studio out of a converted guest room. She freelances for boutique brands and occasionally does murals around the city when the mood hits her. She's always been drawn to big, bold things, color, music, ideas. Our home reflects both of us, minimalist furniture but with splashes of her personality everywhere. Art on the walls, plants in every corner, a record player that spins everything from Fleetwood Mac to obscure ambient jazz. We have dinner together most nights, usually around the kitchen island, and spend our evenings watching documentaries or trying out whatever new board game Rachel's into that month. Weekends are a mix of errands, brunch with friends, and the occasional spontaneous road trip if we're feeling restless. We never had kids, not by decision, just by how life turned out. But we've built something good together. At least, I thought we had. Anyway, that's the start. That's us, or how we began. If there's one word I'd use to describe our life together, it would be settled, not in the boring or resigned sense, but in the way you feel when the pieces of your world click into place. Like you've carved out your corner of the chaos and made it yours. That's how it felt with Rachel for years. Our mornings started with coffee. Always. I'm up earlier, habit from work, so I'd brew the pot, open the windows, and cue up some mellow playlist in the background. Rachel's not a morning person, but the smell of coffee always got her moving. She'd shuffle in wearing one of my hoodies and sit cross-legged at the counter with her phone in one hand and a paint-stained mug in the other. We didn't talk much before 9 a.m., but it was a quiet kind of intimacy I'd grown to love. Being in the same space, even in silence, felt like enough. We had our rhythms. I worked from the den, lots of Zoom calls and client emails, and Rachel ran her design work from her studio upstairs. Her door was usually cracked open, and I'd catch little glimpses of her world. Color swatches taped to the wall, a rotating set of sketch pads, her half-danced movements when music played through her speakers. Sometimes I'd bring her lunch, and she'd smile like I'd just solved some impossible riddle. We didn't do grand gestures much anymore. Those had mellowed with time, but we were thoughtful in small ways. She'd buy me those protein bars I liked without asking. I'd refill her car's gas tank when I noticed it was low. Friday nights were reserved for pizza and whatever movie Rachel picked, which always meant something either painfully artsy or hilariously bad. She claimed it was about balance. Weekends were for catching up with life. Errands, laundry, catching up with friends, or just crashing on the couch with separate books in hand and our feet tangled under a shared blanket. We had this unspoken language built up over the years. A glance across the room could say, "I'm tired," or "Let's leave this party," or "Come to bed." Every once in a while, we'd host dinners. Rachel was a great cook when she wanted to be, though she preferred, assembling things over recipes. Charcuterie boards were her specialty. Our friends always raved about her taste, the perfect mix of effortless and impressive. I usually stayed in the background during these gatherings, refilling drinks, making sure the music didn't get too loud. Rachel was the star of the room, always had been. I liked it that way. Watching her talk about her latest project or describe her dream trip to Morocco made me proud, like I was seeing someone shine from the best seat in the house. Vacations were spontaneous. We weren't big planners. One day we'd be scrolling through travel photos online, and a week later we'd be in Seattle or Santa Fe or Asheville. We didn't care much for touristy stuff. We liked local places, little bookstores, markets, food trucks. It always felt like we were just playing house in another city for a while, and there was something romantic about that. I used to think we were one of the lucky couples, the ones who didn't just last, but fit. We had our quirks, but it worked. Or at least, that's what I believed. Looking back now, I wonder if I missed something. But that's a question for later. Right now, this is just about the life we lived, simple, shared, and full of quiet moments that felt like everything. If you'd asked me a year ago to describe our marriage in a word, I probably would have said comfortable. Not in the lazy sense, not like we were going through the motions, but in that grounded, settled way where you stop wondering what comes next. Life didn't feel like a race anymore. It felt like a rhythm. Rachel and I had been married almost 10 years by then, and the edges of our lives had softened in the way time tends to do. The urgency was gone, but the closeness remained. We knew each other inside out, not just favorite songs or foods, but the little things. Like the way she hummed when she worked without realizing it, or how she always set her teaspoon on the counter without a napkin and I'd wipe it up without saying anything. That was our kind of love, practiced, familiar, built on small habits stacked quietly over time. We'd each carved out our own lanes, but they still ran side by side. She had her world, I had mine, and we'd meet in the middle. Sunday mornings were my favorite. No alarms, no obligations. Just the two of us, coffee and quiet music, maybe a crossword spread out between us. She loved those Sunday crosswords even though she always left half the boxes blank. I'd finish them later, and she'd act offended when I told her she spelled bouillabaisse wrong again. We didn't fight much. When we did, it was over small things, the thermostat, dishes left overnight, who forgot to respond to a text from her sister. But it never lingered. We'd bicker, then shrug it off. Neither of us liked drama. We didn't slam doors or throw words like knives. We just got quiet until one of us softened first. She still surprised me, even after all that time. Like when she decided to paint the downstairs bathroom midnight blue without asking. Or when she came home with a stray cat she just couldn't leave behind, and swore it would only stay a week. It's still here, curled up on the armchair as I type this. We had dreams, still future plans we'd toss around while folding laundry or cooking together. A trip to Portugal. Maybe finally getting that cabin we always talked about in the mountains. She wanted to start a garden. I talked about cutting back on work to do more freelance projects. We imagined what retirement would look like, even though it still felt a lifetime away. I remember telling her once that I wanted to grow old with her in a house that smelled like coffee and paint. She kissed my forehead and said, "Only if I can paint the walls whatever color I want." It's strange, thinking back on all of this now. These quiet, ordinary years, the ones where everything felt calm and sure, are the same ones I look back on trying to pinpoint when things started shifting. But at this point in the story, there were no signs. No red flags. No cracks showing. Just a husband and wife living the life they built together. We were still us. Or at least, that's what I believed. It started on a Wednesday evening. Nothing about the day was unusual. I'd finished up work. Rachel was in the kitchen prepping one of her throw-it-together dinners, something with couscous, roasted vegetables, and some lemony dressing she was into lately. We ate at the island, music playing low in the background, the cat weaving between our legs like usual. It felt like any other night. After dinner, we were doing our usual wind down. She curled up with her iPad, sketching something absent-mindedly, and I was scrolling through the TV looking for something light. That's when she said it. Just like that. Like it was a passing thought. "Have you ever thought about an open relationship?" I laughed at first. I thought she was joking. It was so out of nowhere. I looked at her, waiting for the punchline. But her eyes didn't move from her screen. She just said it again, like she was asking about changing the paint color in the hallway. "No, seriously," she said. "I've been reading about it. How some couples open up their marriages, and it actually brings them closer." I stared at her. I must have said what? Like 3 or 4 times. It was one of those moments where your brain starts buffering, trying to catch up to what your ears just heard. Where is this coming from? I asked. Are you unhappy? No, she said quickly. It's not about being unhappy. It's just, I don't know. We've been together a long time. I love you, obviously. I just think we should be open to exploring new things. Emotionally, physically. It's not like I'm asking to break up. I just think it could be good for us. Good for us. I remember those exact words because they hit like ice. Not in an angry way, not yet, but in a cold, distant way. Like she was pitching some creative idea for her next project. Except this was us. Our marriage. Our life. I told her no. Not angrily. Not even defensively. Just no. I didn't need time to think about it. I didn't need to explore it. I didn't want it. I was content with her. That was the whole point of marriage, wasn't it? Choosing one person, fully, intentionally, over and over again. She didn't fight me on it. Not really. She just nodded and said, okay. I figured you'd say that. Then she got up, put her plate in the sink, and said she was going to take a bath. That was it. That was the whole conversation. But something about the way she walked out of the room made the air feel different. Like a window had been left open in the dead of winter. I sat there, trying to make sense of it. We weren't fighting. Nothing had happened. At least, nothing I knew about. I didn't sleep much that night. She came to bed late, after I'd pretended to fall asleep. I felt the mattress shift under her weight. She didn't curl up next to me like she usually did. Just laid there still. Quiet. I kept thinking about her face when she asked me. The calmness. The certainty. Not a flicker of hesitation. That was when I realized something had shifted. I just didn't know how much yet. After that night, things didn't go back to normal. Not really. Rachel didn't bring up the open relationship again, and I didn't either. I wasn't sure if I was afraid to rehash it or just didn't know how to. But something had changed. I could feel it. I kept telling myself it was just the awkwardness of the conversation, that it would pass, like any uncomfortable moment. But there was a shift in the way she moved through our space. Subtle at first. She kept her phone closer than usual. She started going for walks by herself more often, even at weird hours. Her messages became shorter, replies more delayed. I'd send her a quick, how's your day? And get back a half-hearted, busy, we'll call you later. But the call wouldn't come. She also started going out more. Gallery nights, meetups with old friends, last-minute art events she said she forgot to mention earlier. I never stopped her. I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous husband. But the thing was, she wasn't acting like my Rachel. She used to tell me everything. I knew what she had for lunch most days. Now, it was like I was living with a curated version of her. The highlights, nothing else. When I'd ask how something went, she'd smile too quickly, say it was fine, and then change the subject. Her stories were vague. Missing color. Missing texture. Just words. There was this night, a Friday. She came home late. Said she'd gone out with a few people from her mural collective after a project wrap-up. She smelled different. Not bad, just unfamiliar. Like a different perfume, or maybe just someone else's cologne that lingered. I asked her what place they went to. She blinked, like I'd caught her off guard, then said some bar downtown. The name she gave was one I'd been to once or twice. Kind of loud, not really her scene. I nodded, but something didn't sit right. So the next day, when she was out again, yoga this time, I checked her car's navigation history. Nothing downtown. Just a location about 20 minutes outside the city. A residential street. No restaurant, no art gallery. Just a house. I told myself it could have been anything. A wrong turn. Maybe she gave someone a ride. But the thought lodged itself into the back of my mind like a splinter I couldn't ignore. I didn't say anything to her. Not yet. I needed to be sure. Or maybe I was just scared of what being sure would mean. The thing about trust is, you don't really notice it until it starts breaking. And when it does, you question everything, not just what's happening now, but all the memories that came before. You start wondering, what was real? What was just a version of the truth I was allowed to see? That night, I lay next to her listening to the soft hum of her breathing, and I couldn't stop thinking, who are you texting when you turn away from me? Who are you becoming when I'm not looking? I didn't have answers yet, but I was starting to see the shape of something hiding in plain sight. And it was starting to look like betrayal. By the time the second week rolled around, I was barely sleeping. I'd lie next to Rachel at night, watching the way the soft glow of her phone lit up her face while she scrolled or typed, always angled just far enough away that I couldn't see the screen. If I shifted too much, she'd lock it and roll over like nothing happened. One night, around 1 a.m., I got up to use the bathroom and caught her standing in the hallway, whispering into the phone. She jumped when she saw me. "Oh, hey," she said, like she wasn't startled. "Just talking to Kara. She's going through something with her fiancé." Kara, her coworker. The name felt like a shield. At this point, I'd already started piecing things together in my head, not fully wanting to believe it, but not able to stop the math either. The late nights. The evasive answers. The random new underwear she bought and didn't want me to see. "Just for me," she said with a smirk, like it was supposed to be cute. But I never saw her wear them. Not once. I wasn't the jealous type. I want to make that clear. I never had to be. But something was happening, and it wasn't paranoia. It was a pattern. Her stories were starting to fray at the edges. The details never quite lined up. She said she was at her art space one afternoon, but I drove by on my way back from a client visit, and the building was locked up. Empty. I didn't tell her I'd gone past. I didn't say anything at all. Instead, I started keeping track. Quietly. Notes in my phone, just timestamps and places she said she'd be. Not because I wanted to catch her, but because I needed to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. One evening, I noticed she'd started locking her laptop. She'd never done that before. Not once in 10 years. I asked her casually if she'd changed the password, and she shrugged. "I'm just being cautious. I had a scare with a client file the other day," she said. "From me?" I asked, only half joking. She laughed, but there was a tightness to it. "No, of course not. I just, it's work." But it wasn't just work. I knew that. You don't change your rhythms like that unless something's pulling you out of orbit. What made it worse was the way she acted like nothing was wrong. She still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Still asked what I wanted for dinner. Still made plans for the weekend like we were fine, like I wasn't slowly coming undone behind the scenes. I started wondering if maybe she thought everything was normal. Maybe I was the one who changed. The one who got stuck after the open relationship talk, unable to shake the feeling that I'd only heard the tip of something much larger. I started noticing a new name pop up on her phone notifications, Mel. She said it was a woman from her new art group, super talented, kind of private. But I never saw a last name. Never saw a face. Just the messages. Short pings, sometimes late at night, sometimes midday. Always with the screen flipped downward when I walked into the room. Mel. Right. I didn't push it. Not yet. I told myself I needed to wait, to watch. I didn't want to accuse her of something that could be innocent, or at least defensible. But my gut was screaming, and I wasn't listening to it anymore. I was watching. Quietly. Carefully. Something was happening. I didn't know what it was. But I knew it was going to break something I might not be able to put back together. There's a kind of silence that sneaks into a house, not the peaceful kind, not the cozy, Sunday afternoon kind. This one is colder. It fills the space between two people like fog. You can still see each other, still hear each other, but everything's muted. That's where Rachel and I were. And maybe the worst part was that nothing obvious had happened. There was no blowout fight, no tearful confession, no slammed doors. On the surface, everything looked mostly the same. But something had shifted underneath. I felt it every time she smiled at me, and it didn't quite reach her eyes. Every time her phone buzzed and she glanced at it like it meant more than I did in that moment. I tried not to obsess over it. I really did. She was still kind. Still affectionate in small ways, a squeeze on my shoulder as she walked by, a kiss on the cheek before bed. But it all felt rehearsed. Like she was going through motions we both memorized. Nothing lingered. There was no weight behind it. We stopped talking the way we used to. Not about anything dramatic, just in those in-between moments, the little check-ins that used to tether us. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd answer, but she wouldn't ask about mine. She used to always. I started keeping count, just in my head. For days. 5. A week. She hadn't asked me once. The worst part is, I started doubting myself more than her. Was I being insecure? Was this just what long-term marriage felt like after a while? Did I misread her suggestion about the open relationship? Was she trying to connect, and I just shut her down? That thought haunted me more than I wanted to admit. Maybe I was too quick to judge. Maybe she was restless, not unfaithful. But then why the secrecy? Why the small withdrawals? She'd go out and not offer details. She'd laugh at texts and then clear them when I walked into the room. I told myself that meant nothing. People need privacy. I need it too. But the story in my head kept spinning faster than the facts could catch up. One night, we were getting ready for bed. She was brushing her teeth. I watched her from the doorway, her back to me, her reflection half lit in the mirror. And something about her expression stopped me. She looked different, distant, like she was somewhere else entirely, and I didn't know how to follow. I stood there and thought, what if I don't really know her anymore? That thought scared me more than anything, because I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't pulled away. I was still here, still trying, still in this marriage, fully, painfully present. But she wasn't. Not all the way. I hadn't checked her phone. I hadn't followed her. I hadn't looked for anything. I didn't want to be that guy. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. I didn't know what it was, but I knew, deep in my gut, that I was no longer her whole world. And someone else might be. I wasn't supposed to be home that day. A client meeting had gotten canceled last minute. Normally, I'd just work from the office or grab a coffee and stretch it out. But something told me to head home. Not in a suspicious way, not exactly. I just felt off. Tired, maybe. Heavy. I told myself I wanted a nap. That was the story I believed. Or needed to believe. I didn't text Rachel to let her know I was coming. I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe take her to lunch, maybe try to shake whatever weird distance had been settling between us. A small gesture. Something simple. It was just past noon when I pulled into the driveway. Her car was already there, which was odd. She'd said she had a meeting across town until 2. I didn't think much of it at first. Things change. Schedules shift. Maybe she got home early too. But when I stepped through the door, everything felt wrong. It was too quiet. Not the kind of quiet where someone's working or reading, the kind of quiet that's trying to be quiet. Like the house itself was holding its breath. I walked through the living room. No one. Then I heard it, a low, muffled laugh. A man's voice. From upstairs. I froze. For a second, I couldn't move. My brain refused to put the pieces together, even though it already knew exactly what they meant. And then I heard her. Laughing too. The sound of a bed creaking. That unmistakable rhythm. Followed by a voice I recognized in an instant. It was my best friend. I didn't think. I didn't knock. I just walked straight up the stairs and opened the door to our bedroom. Rachel was on her back. Her legs wrapped around him. They were mid-motion. No covers, no hiding, just skin and shock. It took a full beat before either of them reacted. She screamed and scrambled for the blanket. He stood there, frozen, before reaching for his boxers. I just stood in the doorway, staring. It's strange how calm your body can feel when your entire life explodes. My hands weren't shaking. My voice wasn't loud. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the moment everything turns. Rachel tried to say something. I don't even know what. Maybe my name. Maybe. Wait. I didn't give her the chance. I looked at him. My best friend since college. The guy I trusted with my house, my life, everything. I said nothing. Just stared him down until he looked away. Then I said, get out. He tried to say something, maybe an apology, maybe an excuse, but I cut him off with one line. You were in my house. In my bed. With my wife. He grabbed his clothes and slipped past me without another word. Coward. I followed him down the stairs, opened the front door, and watched him walk barefoot into the street like the pathetic man he was. When I turned back, Rachel was sitting at the top of the stairs, wrapped in a blanket, shaking. Eyes wide. Mouth open, but silent. I said one thing before I walked past her. You're both out. I grabbed my keys, drove straight to the hardware store, and changed every lock on the house that night. I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. It was too far past emotion. This wasn't heartbreak. This was clarity. I'd been lied to. Betrayed. And the worst part? It wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I didn't sleep that night. After I changed the locks, I sat on the couch with the lights off, just existing. Not thinking. Not feeling. Just letting the silence settle around me like armor. My phone was vibrating nonstop, Rachel calling, then texting, then calling again. I didn't answer. I didn't read anything she sent. I just watched her name appear and disappear from the screen over and over, like it was trying to drag me back into something I was already walking away from. Around 2 a.m., I finally stood up and started moving. First, the credit cards, the ones I added her to when we got married, the ones she used to pay for groceries, clothes, dinners with friends. I logged in, one by one, and removed her name. Froze the cards that were in her purse. She'd wake up the next morning and realize her tap-to-pay life had been cut off at the source. Then I opened our joint bank account. Transferred everything with my name on it into a new private account. She'd still have hers. I wasn't out to ruin her financially. Just to draw the line. The legal one. The emotional one. By sunrise, I was sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee and staring out the window like nothing had happened. But I felt different. Lighter, somehow. Like I'd finally stopped waiting for permission to take care of myself. She came by that afternoon. Banged on the door for 15 straight minutes. I didn't open it. I watched from the upstairs window as she tried her old key, then realized it didn't work. She looked around like maybe I'd appear, give her a chance to explain. I didn't. She sat on the porch for a while, crying. I waited until she left. Later that night, I texted her a single message. Your things will be packed and dropped off at your sister's. Do not come back here. You're no longer welcome in this house. She didn't reply. But I wasn't done. I knew what I was about to do next wasn't mature. It wasn't noble. But it felt necessary. I called my best friend's wife, Emily. We'd always been polite acquaintances. Saw each other at parties, the occasional double date. I told her we needed to talk. In person. She came over that weekend, confused but calm. I opened the door, handed her a glass of wine, and showed her the photo I'd taken on my phone, Rachel and him, mid-act, before they saw me standing there. She stared at it for a long time. Didn't blink. Didn't even put the glass down. Then she said, "How long?" I told her everything I knew. Which wasn't much, but enough. Enough to confirm it wasn't a one-time thing. Enough to destroy a marriage. And then I did something I didn't think I had the nerve for. I kissed her. I don't know why. I don't even know who leaned in first. Maybe we were both reaching for something, for control, for revenge, for a moment where we weren't the ones being humiliated. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't gentle. But it happened. She stayed the night. In the morning, she left without saying much. Just a nod. A thank you, maybe. A few days later, I heard she filed for divorce. As for me, I'm not proud of what I did. But I don't regret it either. They made their choices. Now I was making mine. The first few days after everything went down were strangely quiet. Not peaceful, not even close, just quiet. Like the house was holding its breath, waiting to see who I'd be now. Rachel didn't come back. Not after I changed the locks, not after I cut her off. Her sister texted me once, something polite, strained. She picked up the boxes. She's staying with me for now. That was it. My best friend, ex-best friend, tried to call me twice. I didn't answer. What could he possibly say? That it just happened? That he didn't mean to destroy the one friendship that had spanned almost 2 decades? I wasn't interested in hearing anything from him. I had nothing left to say. Emily and I didn't speak after that night. I didn't expect we would. That was never about anything but burnback. Collateral damage, maybe. I didn't feel good about it. But I didn't feel bad, either. It just was. Like everything else now. The weirdest part was how quickly life went back to normal, at least on the surface. I still made coffee in the morning. I still answered emails. I still went to the grocery store and forgot half the list, just like I always did. But under all of that was this hum, low, constant, uncomfortable. I was numb. Not broken, just hollowed out. People always talk about betrayal like it's this explosive, heart-wrenching thing. For me, it was quieter. More surgical. Like someone had carved out the middle of my chest and left the shell standing. I could function. I could nod and smile and sign documents. But I wasn't really in any of it. The nights were the worst. Lying in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation from the last year with fresh eyes. Realizing just how much I missed. Or maybe refused to see. The worst question wasn't, why did she cheat? It was, how long was she gone before she actually left? Because that's what it felt like now, like I'd been living with a ghost version of her. The real Rachel, the one I married, had left months ago. Maybe longer. I just didn't notice. Or I did. And I lied to myself because the alternative felt unbearable. Some mornings, I'd catch myself still expecting her voice. A laugh from another room. The clink of her tea mug. I hated how automatic it was. How even after everything, after walking in on her with him, my mind still searched for the rhythm we used to have. It's like your body doesn't get the memo that your heart's been wrecked. I started therapy. 1 session, so far. Just enough to know I need it. The therapist asked me, "What do you want to feel?" I didn't have an answer. All I could say was, "Not this." I don't know what comes next. Not really. The divorce papers are being drafted. There's no fight over property. We never had kids. No lawyers needed to dig deep. Just a clean break on paper. The kind that looks simple until you remember everything underneath. Sometimes I wonder what she tells people. What her version of the story is. Does she say I was distant? Controlling? Emotionally unavailable? Or does she just call it a mistake? A moment that got out of hand? I'll never know. And honestly, I don't care anymore. She wanted an open relationship. Now we're wide open. Just not in the way she imagined. The hardest part, once everything was over, once the locks were changed, the accounts split, the papers signed, was figuring out what to do with the silence. Because the anger fades. Even the sadness fades. But the silence? That lingers. It's not just the absence of her footsteps in the hallway or her laugh from the kitchen. It's the absence of belonging, of being seen, of knowing that someone chose you every day, or at least pretended to. That's what I missed the most for a while. The illusion of safety. Because now I know it was never about sex. It wasn't even about love. It was about erosion, slow, silent erosion. A million little moments she pulled away while I looked in the other direction. Maybe I could have asked more questions. Maybe I could have pushed back harder when she first mentioned the open relationship. But the truth is, by the time she said those words, she'd already left me in every way that mattered. She just hadn't packed a bag yet. And that's the part I'm still making peace with. I'm not angry anymore. Not at her. Not even at him. Anger served its purpose. It got me through the fire. But I'm not living there now. I started journaling again. I hadn't done that since college. Every morning, just a few lines. Not about her. Not anymore. But about where I'm at. Some days it's 3 sentences about the weather and my coffee. Other days it's pages of messy, looping thoughts that don't go anywhere. But it helps. So does therapy. My therapist told me something that stuck. You grieve what you lost, even when what you lost wasn't what you thought it was. And she was right. I wasn't grieving Rachel. I was grieving the life I thought I had. The man I was when I believed in that life. The version of us that only existed in my memory. I took a trip just for myself. Booked a cabin upstate. No phone service. Just me, a stack of books, and miles of cold air and trees. I slept better that week than I had in months. Woke up to silence. Not the heavy kind from before, but something cleaner. Still, free. I'm not rushing into anything. I'm not dating. I'm not on apps. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. For the first time in a long time, I'm learning how to be okay with just being me again. And maybe that's the real end of this story. Not the affair, not the revenge, not the divorce. The real ending is this. I found myself again. Not the version of me that gave everything to someone else. Not the one who kept making space for someone who stopped showing up. But the one who remembers who he is. What he values. What he deserves. If you're reading this and you're in the thick of it, if you're where I was, with that ache in your gut and the questions spinning faster than answers, let me say this. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not broken because someone broke your trust. And you will get through it. One breath at a time.